Hello, welcome back to Astrology Study Group for this week. And well, since it's the 31st of October, traditionally people celebrate Halloween, kind of an extension of Samhain. I'm going to talk about the astrology of death. I've been wanting to do this for a while, but it's kind of a strange topic. I'm going to sort of extend it a little bit to death and transformation, because it's not that easy to really just go pinpoint and go, oh yeah, here we go, here it is. And this ties in very, very much to medical astrology, which we've talked about quite a bit. So where do you begin with something like this? Well, first thought, and I was thinking about this today, and there's a lot to it, but we'll just start looking at what's there in the chart. So once we begin looking at a chart and starting to assess, like I'm thinking about this, the astrology of death. Death. It could be anything of not only the physical death, but we go through many deaths in a lifetime. So where do we even begin with something like this? I thought, I think we're good. I think it's good. Okay. I don't know what happened.
You blanked out for a minute there. I wasn't getting
Yeah,
any.
the microphone got weird. Can you hear me okay now?
I can now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's a touchy microphone. It's like maybe it's the death to the microphone. Oh, God. Oh, all right. So yeah, where do we even start? So the first thing that came to my mind, and I didn't want to complicate it so much with the outer planets, although I have them in the chart. I brought up the chart of Bruce Lee, but because it's kind of intriguing, and we can look at something while we're talking, looking at this. I thought the first thing would be to start with, where is it? Well, I want to just kind of keep it limited to the inner planets, the sun, the moon, and the 5 planets. I don't want to go into the outer ones at this moment. I don't think it's that necessary when we're talking about like natal astrology. I think it complicates things, although they're here and I may refer to them, but just because they're just more data points. But I think we can tell a lot by just the traditional planets. So first thing, I had to just say that, my own disclaimer. So I'm thinking of, the malefics. That's like the first thing. And where are they? And what are the rulers of the house they're in? So let's kind of start with that. And I'll give you a little overview, then we'll go into it a little bit more. So where are the malefics? We'll go look at those. What aspects are being made to that? And then I want to we'll examine the water houses, the 4th, well, not just the water houses, I should say. We'll look at the 4th house, the 6th house, because that's a house of health, and we'll see there, because if there's health issues, then that's definitely going to point toward how something might occur. The 8th house, of course, and the 12th house. Now, even though today is Halloween, and in the northern hemisphere, the All Hallows Eve and Samhain was kind of, that was like a northern medieval practice. I mean, it goes back thousands of years. The Druids, the Celtics, celebrated those off-season holidays. And let me just back up just a hair about, give me a couple minutes on this just to paint the picture of this whole thing. We have the solstices and equinoxes giving us our 4 points. So, if you're talking about time before the internet, time before a lot of information, how would you know what time of year, like your rural people, that there's, that you got to bring things to market, that there's, this is finished and you got to bring something here because that's where people are going to be. How are you going to know that? You can't call anybody up. There's no papers. And people use, the definitely you can tell, when the days are now going to change from long to short, or the longest to the shortest, or the equal ones. So that was kind of that was kind of a given. That was sort of easy, basic 101 time telling, calendar sort of telling. But then how about the off seasons? So you got those are the 4 points. Now, what if we moved it? What would be the tangents? Like if we just gave those as like north, south, east, west, what would be northwest and southeast and northeast and southwest? And, how about those tangent degrees? And I think we've talked about this before, but just as a reminder, so if they're cardinal points, like for, 0 Aries is, the first day of spring is 0 Aries, the first day of, well, and I shouldn't say it that way. I'm blasphemous for the northern hemisphere. It's just a marker of the days in the northern hemisphere starting, it's like equal now, there's going to be abundance more of light. And then in the southern hemisphere, it's the opposite. So I don't want to get off on that, but I do have to talk about just a little bit of how the traditions and things got lumped on that to get us to think automatically like that. So anyway, people would then meet up or have festivals or different gatherings on those other points. And those would be the midpoints between the seasons. So if I'm trying just to get to whittling out just a little bit. So 0 degrees Aries, between that and between 0 degrees Cancer, the midpoint of that would be halfway through the fixed sign, whatever it is. So between those seasons, wherever you're at, north or south pole, northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, that would be 15 degrees Taurus. So that would be that midpoint. And, and we've given all those names, and there's, the one in the summer midpoint is 15 degrees Leo, then 15 degrees Scorpio, then the one at 15 degrees Aquarius. So there's the pagan names for those, and the one that we're celebrating, should be around this time of year. It should be, around the 7th or 8th of November. But because of the popes and, the Romans conquering all of the Celtic land, going through all the British Isles and bringing their traditions, all of those things kind of got washed around. And the Pope said, "Oh, it's not going to make it this day. We'll make it, on October 31st, and screw that holiday and that time, and we're going to just do it our way." So that all that stuff happened. But traditionally, if we think about the Celtic holiday that's happening around now, actually it would be another week or so. It'd actually be 1 week ahead because we're not at 15 degrees. Midway through Scorpio yet, which we'll go over to the, when we do the weekly updates, we'll look at that. But nonetheless, I just want to paint the picture. So traditionally, that was a time where, the summer's done, the harvest is done, everything's getting ready for the long, dark, cold winter. So at that midpoint holiday, Samhain, spelled Samhain, Gaelic word, I guess. That's when they would, burn, a lot of the debris that they, harvested, all the stalks and, extra limbs and all that, and make these big bonfires, and, people would gather together and blah, 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 blah. Well, that also was the time where, again, things were, in that time, there's no streetlights at night. It was pretty scary. When it's dark in the world, it's dark, it's scary out there. So it was way different than it is now. Our world is lit up now and we don't think about these things. So those were, that was harsh, and then in an extreme northern climate, it gets cold for a long time and dark, and people died a lot. Okay, it was harsh. It was, they didn't have food, they couldn't go to the market. It's like what you had or grew. You didn't, always have the best clothes and footing, and, so not a lot of light. So there was, an intrepid time of year, and people feared that. So thus we come along to associating a lot of that with this season or this time of year. But again, I have to just say that's a bias for the northern hemisphere, because, in the southern hemisphere, it's the opposite time and it doesn't hold true. So, we have to be sensible when we study astrology and not think, that it's like the whole world isn't like that. But that's where that stemmed from. And that's where I thought I would say that, because there's where a lot of the association of death and Scorpio, a lot of that, came from. But if we just remember, the eighth house, it's in the right hand hemisphere. It's, it relates to others. It's in the middle of that. It's, it's tenacity. It's like, I want you. It's forever. It's just captivating. So that's, it wants you. It wants to control you. Scorpio wants to control you. So that's, that the eighth house has that deep energy. It's a fixed sign, and it's a water sign. Fixed water. What's that? That's like what? A swamp? It's not going, it's not changing, doesn't want to change, So that's, you got to think about those when we think about those energies, rather than the stereotypical northern hemispheric astrology that we've been, have been stuffed down our throats. All right, I had to say all that because there is, a lot of intrigue and mystery with Scorpio. And, that's why I pulled up Bruce Lee, I thought for sure, because that's a very interesting death. I'm not going to go into the whole thing about it, but it was kind of, and very intriguing. Him exposing a lot of things in the West that the Chinese did not want, and making a lot of movies, bringing out a lot of things. There's some Chinese mafia people probably wanted him dead. So anyway, let's just look at his chart. And then let's just, kind of use that as an example of a few things. First thing, we see all this stuff in Scorpio. We've got a stellium here in Scorpio in the 11th house. Interesting, in an Aquarian house, right? So he's going to bring this focused, intense stuff to everybody. The egalitarian, everybody should know Wing Chun and how to defend themselves and against all this stuff. And look, his moon, Venus and Mars, conjunction. Real close to the moon. Moon goes either way. You can give it a little orb there either way. And conjuncting Mercury. So he's bringing that stuff out, that feelings. He was that, bringing this to the world. And all of this intrigue, just like, oh my goodness, this heavy Scorpio. But then he's got this, happy Sag, rising Sag sun energy, double Sag. But he's got the sun in the 12th house, a spiritual house. So that's interesting. His sun is there. First, we got a couple clues, just ding, ding, right there. 12th house, your house of endings. Okay. That's like, okay, so now let's go look at where his malefics are. All right, let's go look at Big Daddy first, Saturn. And we have Saturn in Taurus, and it's very close to Jupiter. Look at another conjunction. Wow. He's conjunction crazy guy here. But so those two kind of fuse together, so that's a expansion and contraction. If anybody's got that, in this cycle, these two meet up every so often. They've got that. So that's a very interesting push pull, and it's in his 5th house, creation. So he's got this, and it's bringing again more to earth, bringing this down to earth, bringing this stuff out. So it's in Taurus, not a bad place. Let's see, Saturn. No, nothing's bad with it there. And then how about that one? Let's see, the Kudars. No, there's none of them. Neither of those are out of, they're not in detriment or fall. So it's like, okay, that's cool. Doesn't seem real big deal, But okay, so we have a conjunction here. So let's see what else is going on with Saturn. Anything at, let's give it an orb of like 3 degrees. So like maybe, 6 degrees to 12. Let's go look around for 6 to 12. Moon. So it's the first thing, we got a opposition there with Moon and Saturn. Almost right on to the degree. 2 degrees apart, the moon has got a pretty, fair orb. So that's another interesting clue. We got, so entanglement there, Saturn, a malefic with the moon, feelings, daily things, cycles, balance, water, intrigue, depth. Whoa, okay. And then now Mars, so it's right here next to it, feeding right into the moon. Look at it, it's conjunct the moon. So that means Mars is got kind of a wide, well, let's see if we give it I'll maybe give it a 6 degree orb, maybe 4, 5, 6. So that would be pretty close to an opposition, Derek, over to both of those voodoo daddies, more to Jupiter. But, being that they're conjunct. So, all right. So now we got a couple more clues. All right. That's interesting. So we've got some, Mars, right there next to Venus, right next to the moon. And then also, opposing Jupiter and Saturn. Okay. Pretty dynamic thing we got going on. And the sun in the 12th house of endings. Interesting. Okay. So what's on the list while we're here, close to the 6th house? We got Taurus on the cusp of the 6th house, and then we go look for what's the ruler of Taurus, and we should think, oh, Venus. Venus, oh, it's over here. Look there, it's opposing. So that's the ruler. Its ruler is opposing the cusp of that. Ooh, now we're starting to get a little tangle up. We can start to see a little snarl forming, right? Ooh, gang, another thing, another one. This is how you find stuff. It's like if you find just a few things, or one or two, it's like, but when you keep finding them, this would be where I'd start to look. Okay, so we have that. And then we have, just because it's in here, we have Uranus. Look at just where it is right now. It's interesting. Oh, so when was this? 1940. That the same. We should go look at this too, because 1940. It's right before the war, right? Or right there right before World War II, before it actually broke out, right? It was like a little bit before it. And look at where Uranus is. Just saying. And what are we at right now? Looks like we're on the brink of the next one. I don't even want to say it, but I just have to point that out while we're there. Okay. Well, that just adds more entanglement. So, and then here, because we have Uranus there, it's like sudden, right? So there's maybe something sudden with him. And I forget the exact how he died and everything. I should have investigated that, but I kind of don't hold on to that. But there's a lot here. So anyway, there was something sudden in there and something of the earth. All right, let's move on because there's a lot to go through. All right, so now let's look at the little bit more packed house, the 8th house. And we got to look at the cusp first, because that just tells us what's the ruler of that house. And we get it's Cancer there, so we should know that the ruler of Cancer is the moon. And we go, where's the moon? Boom! Oh no! Right in this pack of wolves here. It's a snake pit. Scorpion pit. Okay, so we got two. Look at the ruler of the 6th house of health over here. The ruler of the 8th house of a lot of that depth, what we were just talking about, behind the scenes, and the house of death. They give it that ruler over here. Boom, the moon. And then because we can't help but notice that it's here. Pluto is also associated with its own house, the house of death. So that's interesting. So that's going to be like, and it's in Leo. So I'd say that would just add to his death being highlighted, or a big deal, or going out with a big splash somehow, right? With that Leo there, just would add to it. Okay. We did 4. Well, I didn't do 4. I went right over to 6. We'll go back to that in a minute. The 12th house. And the ruler of the 12th house is Scorpio. Of course, right? Yeah. So, and look, it's like right at the mid-degree, and then Mercury is right there, just on the other side of it. It's, Mercury is with the pack in the 11th house, not broke off by itself in the 12th, kind of a far away from the sun. Isn't that interesting? This is very interesting when you actually start, like, just a little longer, just a little different. Look at that. It's like just like a few minutes off, or, But anyway, I digress. But that's, what we're just talking about. This is like the degree of Samhain, which where we're at right now. What would be when it was actually at that midpoint. But it's just adds to that mystery, or adds to that complications of things in there that hidden. You never know. You'll never know. We'll never know the true meaning there, how it really happened. So what's the ruler? Looks like the traditional ruler is Mars, right? Traditional ruler of Scorpio. And where's Mars? Right here in the pack. Can we get any more, poignant with this whole thing here? If we were to spend a long time, but we can start to see some things tying in here. This whole group, it's like in all the rulers of that. All right, before I forget, 1, 2, 3, 4. The ruler of the fourth house there, we would have, we've got Pisces. And Pisces is, the 12th house ruler. It's like, get this right back kind of over there. Oh my God. So anyway, where's Jupiter in his chart? And, which is the traditional ruler of Pisces, over here next to Saturn. Okay, need I say more? Right, so we've definitely got, a kind of the death would be a big deal with this guy. The way he dies, his legacy, what he brought. He wasn't afraid to bring this out. So this is pretty fascinating. But I want you to just kind of see how we can start to tease this out, and then we can go look for, aspects between all of those things that I mentioned. We already brought out a lot of them, but we can get even more so. And, we went through the ruler of the house, where it's in and where they're all at. So you can see how this is just, it's all ping, 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 tying back in, then you go look at, the South Node, be another thing I would look at that. And then the current transits to his natal astrology. We can, maybe another time we'll do a deep dive. We'll get the day he died and then compare it to this and then go, see what was going on. Okay, so that's kind of how you do it. So now I want to show you something kind of real time. I'm going to look at, get it up for us. Let me get another screen. New share, there it is. Go to this one. We got it up right. All right, make sure I get new share. You should see it, right? Did I have it right? New share, there we go.
I see it.
Okay, good. Yeah, so you should see my chart, Carrie Astro Breeze on the middle, and then this date here, this past year, February 20th. This was a day that my mom died. And I said, when I looked at the astrology, several days later, I was like, holy shit, there's a lot here. And I said, I don't want to go through this, but not yet. And it took me a while to kind of process it. But I have to point out a few things. So since we're talking about that, sometimes when you look in your chart, you can see things coming up. It's not always your death, but it's a death of somebody around you. And you can kind of get a clue to maybe what's going on. So let me just go over this because it's just easy just to dive in. So my chart is in the middle here. I've got the Leo rising 3 degrees. My sun is up here, right at the midheaven in the 9th house, and the Mars here. Okay, but we're going to go look at Saturn. So Saturn here is in my 8th house, because that's why I want to look at it. I mean, it's not only if it's where's the malefic, but it happens to be in 8th house. So it's like, oh, okay. So we see here it's at 1 degree Pisces. And we've had Saturn, just moved into Pisces this last year. And you can see at this date, it was 28 Aquarius. It was just about to move into Pisces. And I think it was like a month later, it was in there. But this is like in an applying aspect. So we've got this, the Saturn return. Okay. Well, I mean, people have Saturn returns. Okay. That doesn't mean there's nothing there. But look what else is going on. Look at that day. There was a new moon in Pisces. So sun and moon right on my Saturn. And then the moon, I just did this time because I think that was about the time she might have passed. Might have been a little earlier. But look at that, the sun and moon conjunct right there on Saturn. Holy shit. When I saw that, I'm like, astrology sometimes is so accurate. Sometimes you can't always find stuff, until later. But when I saw this, if I would have looked at this ahead of time, I might have thought it was my dad because my dad is Pisces. But a lot of times the opposition type things, it's like it might have indicated the moon, was, the opposition of the Piscean thing, which was, the opposite with my mom. So I was like, very interesting. So another time maybe if we have time here, I'll pull up her chart and we'll look at that. But this, the moon is a lot of times the timing or the trigger. So, it's like as I'm looking at this, I go, all right, Saturn's coming into here. the sun happens to be there that day. You know, it's like the sun here is here every year, you know, on the day, but not with Saturn sitting here on my Saturn. Okay, so this is how the timing of things come up, and then the moon was the trigger, you know, and it happened to be a very intense, you know, was it a lunar eclipse here? It was bright. It was I mean, not bright. It was just a big one, is what I'm saying, a intense one that came through. All right. What else? Venus was, you know, that semi-sextile, so it was in a yucky degree. It was like just nothing, you know. Venus is nice, you know, but it was like, nah, you know. So it was that way over to my Saturn and over to these two. They were, you know, Venus with this new moon wasn't happy. What else was there going on? Mars, remember we talked about Mars in the middle of degrees was never really great. So Mars was here at 15. What else here? Let me move this down. Was there anything else significant? The North Node was in Scorpio. Just interesting. Midheaven in Scorpio. It's just my calculations there. But that the moon, the moon nodes then were there. What else? Kind of making just like, you know, in conjunct and a semi-sextile over to my natal Mars. See Mars, anything else here? Those are the big ones. I mean, that was like, you don't need to have a lot. You just need to have something kind of right on. Now let's see. I can call up her chart there, the bi-wheel. There it is. Okay, so you should see my mom, her name is Rosemary. This is her chart in the middle. And this is what was going on the day she passed. And we can see this new moon was right on her south node. Look at that. Isn't that interesting? You know, like when is the new moon? See, this is sometimes things that we just might want to note. We just might want to, you know, remember, you know, as astrologers in the back of your head, you know, it's like, when is the new moon at that exact degree? And that's when it was. It was like 1 degree. They would have aligned right there. Look at that. Right there on our south node. Time to exit. Bye-bye. And she died of a stroke, in case I didn't say it. So look what's going on. Saturn is in her 6th house. Wow. In Gemini. So, you know, Saturn there in the 6th house, you know, anything you think in the 6th house, you know, I tend to wonder. I had something else here for you. Meaning planets, Saturn. Let's see what I'm looking at for you. There was something. Okay, yeah. Death caused by Saturn let me just go through this. Planets and nature of death. This was kind of cute. Sun, the sun indicates death by fevers or paralysis, you know, because it's hot, right? It's, you know, it's the big thing. Moon, watery diseases, drowning, loose motions, diarrhea, blood impurities. Mars could bring death by pneumonia, cholera, epidemics, hemorrhage, bronchitis, abortion, surgical operations, accidents, accidental gunshot wounds or stabbings. Of course, Mars, right? Mercury brings death to the person by fever of brain, nervous disorders, sleeping sickness, whooping cough, and assaults. Jupiter causes death by mental worry or by some unknown disease, pleurisy, liver disease, inflammation of the lungs, heart failure, and spasms. Venus indicates death by excessive thirst, excessive heating, syphilis, gonorrhea, right? Over too much. Same with Mercury, sometimes over too much. And Saturn, death by suffocation, burns, rheumatic, fever, paralysis, melancholy, and consumption. Just kind of little interesting notes of that. All right. So yeah, in her chart, yeah, we got Saturn there. And then let's see, Mercury was the ruler of it was Gemini. So where is Mercury in her chart? It's over here in Libra in her 10th house. Anything making any aspects over that? Pluto just squared it. It's a little wide square, but Saturn, well, it's kind of wide. Nope. Neptune in conjunct from Neptune. Just kind of not real nice. What else? How about in her 8th house? Well, she got Pluto. Interestingly, she got Pluto there, and then Leo's the ruler of that, and she died of a stroke. So that's, heart and blood, plaquing. Saturn would be like, I would think, all the hard deposits, plaque, calcium deposits, all that is, which contributes to stroke. And then, the ruler of that was, Mercury. Mercury is, thinking. But then we have Pluto right in that house. That was just kind of interesting, which, is just that erratic, or that inflamed. That's what I was trying to think. That inflamed feeling of that being inflamed. But the sun moon is what triggered all that. And look at all her, she's got this big stellium in Virgo, except for, there's a North Node, but North Node, Virgo, Sun, and then Neptune. So as the moon made aspects, oppositions to all of that. It was, just that it was just on its way. Okay, so back to just looking at that, looking at things, and then looking at timing, and then seeing, what we've got, hard aspects, harsh things. When I tell you, we can see that the type of death, and we can go find it. We got here Saturn, and then she had, his breathing problem there, and there's, more of the lungs with that, and Saturn and constriction, that whole bit. In her chart too, Uranus is close to that. It's in the same sign, so that'd be kind of sudden. And she did die quick. She died in a very pleasant manner in her sleep. But it was fast. Look at that. Mercurial. So you can just keep diving in, and the more you look at it, the more you can see, and the more we can start to check some of this out in people that have passed in your own life, it's kind of, I think it's kind of hard maybe to look at your own self, because there's so much, and it's sort of objective. You might need help when you do that, but you can see tendencies, when you look at your own 6th house to see any health issues, like with her, it would be like, well, there's like, Saturn there in the 6th house. If you have nothing there, it's not so much, but whenever you have something, and you got to think, what is the nature of that planet? Saturn is always, hardened things, stones, bones, teeth, mineral deposits, and then if we have Gemini, it could be many, a lot. It could be bronchial. She smoked, her whole life, so we have some of these issues that could have started to create some of the problems. And then here, where's Mercury? The Mercury is over in the 10th house. And we can go, investigate that, blah, 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 blah. And then you can kind of just get an idea of, well, how do you start undoing some of this? Or how do you make it a peaceful transition? Or how do you keep yourself healthy by knowing a lot of this? So you can offset how intense a transition might be. I guess that's the easiest way to put it. All right, there's quite a bit here. I did find an interesting website. It was, oh God, I should have to put it in a thing. It was, I have tons of notes here. I'm gonna have to maybe write it in a chat. I can't find it. Put it in there. Or maybe I'll mention it next time. What was it? Oh, anyway, I'll come up. It was something in Destiny. Pluto in Destiny. Oh, well, I'll come up on it again. I thought I had it, but I got too many notes here. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. All right, sorry. Sorry to raise your, what is it? Anyway, happy this time of year. Check out your 4th, 6th, 8th, 12th house. Check out the condition of the malefics. Look at things transiting the malefics, and then the moon is always a trigger. So let's That's the best way I would put it. Okay, I'm gonna go and we'll get on with our transits. Thank you for listening and more to share. All right, bye for now. Oh.